Good afternoon, everyone. Clint McLaughlin here, Midwest Market Management. It is Thursday, July 30th. I've got Riley Sykart on with me here. We're going to jump into U.S. weather from a national yield perspective. Riley, we beat the markets up pretty hard on this incoming rain. And now we're going to start to put that behind us. Everybody, the world's pretty interested in seeing how these rains materialize here this afternoon. It's going to be a big deal. But looks like we're going to start to dry back out. Got some heat to the west again. And yeah, I don't know. We got a lot of interesting weather ahead of us yet.
Yeah, I'd say the next 24 to 48 hours are going to be pretty critical in deciding what's happening for this year's crop. I'd say especially on the corn side at this stage in the game. Good way to welcome us into it. With that said, let's start off with some maps. First thing I got, 1 to 5 day temperatures. This one has probably stayed the most unchanged of any maps I've seen. Next 5 days, I would say relatively cool as we're turning the calendar into August. You can see in the west still upper 80s to low 90s, but central to east all lower 80s and pretty ideal. One thing that is different today, if you look here, 6 to 10 day temperatures. The east, I'd say, is still going to be okay, upper 80s, Minnesota, lower 80s. But if you look in that western belt, Nebraska, Kansas, even over in Missouri, upper 90s to lower hundreds in that 6 to 10 day. So that is a new thing that we were not seeing on Tuesday, and definitely going to be important to look at and when you throw precip into the mix, and potentially how quickly these places can dry out. Because as we all know, the western belt is definitely on the drier side of life right now, Clint. So one thing that is new, drought monitor map also came out today. Changes from last week. Northern Illinois had some deeper color added. And then in this area that we all know has been very, very dry, South Dakota, upper Nebraska, these colors have been enhanced and increased. So no doubt there's a drought going on in that western region of the growing area. So with that said, last 2 weeks of rainfall, nothing new here, not any big shockers. Eastern belt got some rain, and there was some spotty stuff through Nebraska and a little bit of South Dakota. But 1 to 5, the name of the game and what's going on. Rain pattern since Tuesday has shifted a little bit northeast, but even with that said, a lot of South Dakota where they're really wet, Minnesota, a good chunk of Iowa, and all the way into the eastern belt, looking to get some rains to really help them out. The part that I really want to see what happens now, as this has shifted a little bit to the east, Clint, how much rain is going to fall right in this 4-state corner of South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota?
That's the key, and this is different from what I remember. Maybe it's not different, but I thought that the heavier totals were down more in that critical area where we're seeing the 4.74 up in northeast South Dakota. You know, that region, I'm sure that they want the moisture as bad as anybody, and they are actually probably in better shape than southern South Dakota. So it's going to do more good to, you know, benefit them and stop that from going backwards, and maybe even excel it into some fantastic yields up there. But where they're really hurting, and you know, along that what is it, I-90 that runs down there through Mitchell and all of that. Yep. That is some pretty rough territory, and now they're advertising that in the lower rainfall totals here, and they're the ones that really need it. So we will see. We will see where this shakes out.
Well, the good news is for them, if they can get that 3/4 of an inch to an inch, a drop of rain when you're in the desert is certainly better than no drop of rain. So yeah. Like you said in the beginning, next 48 hours are going to be really, really critical to see what all comes out of this storm pattern. So one thing that is different if you remember in the 6 to 10 day, I mentioned a lot of heat coming into the mix. Well, a lot of heat, not a lot of rainfall. From a national yield perspective, Clint, I think the 6 to 10 day, as you're getting into the 8th of August, depending on what happens from this rain pattern, national yield could potentially be getting lowered even more. If everybody gets well watered, then you take that with a bit of a grain of salt, because you can have a little bit of a dry out period and be okay. But if rains come in maybe a little less than expected in some areas that are continuing to be dry, heat coming in and no rain in that 6 to 10 day is, I would say, really starting to put a big question mark on what our national yield's going to be.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of a delayed response, Riley, but I think a combination of losing bushels in North Dakota, South Dakota, dryland, Nebraska, Northwest Iowa shaving yields off. The Eastern Belt has been in fantastic conditions after they got through planting season, which for a lot of people was a bit of a train wreck. So I think the market has probably given too much credit to the Eastern Belt for all the good things that have happened since. And you start putting all the holes together, and it's just very difficult for me to see anything like last year. I think the trade's more succumbing to a 181 to a 183. And I can't help but wonder if we're going to take a slow approach to the grind lower as we go into, later into the year, into harvest, into the beginning of next year, as we start to realize that this crop is potentially a upper 170s to a low 180s. And I just feel like that, again, it's no one major problem, devastational issue anywhere. They're starting to be, the holes are starting to show up, in my opinion, over the course of the year.
And so national yield potentially being lowered. And when you put that into a market perspective, we've taken some off the top this week, but it's definitely raising eyebrows into what could happen as you turn the calendar not only to the second half of 26, but even into 2027, and what the possibilities are.
Where does that put our ending stocks, and how sensitive is the market going into next year's growing season? It's just going to be, if we were to say 170s, that gets your ending stocks tight, and then the market becomes very sensitive to any kind of conditions next year.
Yeah.
So that's where we are, and we will see how many bushels we can make tonight and tomorrow.
Yep. And real quick, 1 to 13 day. I just want to throw this in there. It's pretty much what's in the forecast for the next 3 days. And then other than that, it's just little blippy spots that make the forecast look wetter. So green to yellow in a 2-week forecast doesn't give it a whole lot of potential possibilities when it's a lot of spotty stuff in the mix. So this map, I would say normally, Clint, you and I look at this and say, well, there's rain in the forecast. That solves that. But when the amounts are that limited over 2 weeks, I'm actually going to start talking about it in the other direction. I think a lot of that, especially this time of year, could get missed. Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see how we react here in the next 7 days. But this very well could be a sell the rumor buy the facts situation, to where we beat this market up because this rain's coming, and now the rain either materializes or doesn't materialize, and we get a bounce either way, because I feel like these rains are kind of built in here.
Agreed. So with all that said, Clint, that's all I've got today. So,
all right. Thanks again, Clint McLaughlin, Riley Sykard, Midwest Market Management. Thanks a lot, and have a good day.